Hi players, bonjour from Geneva. My name is Asaf and welcome to my channel Easy Board Games. Today I'm going to have a review for you for Black Orchestra, since there is going to be soon a campaign on GameFound for an expansion for Black Orchestra and also another standalone game. I'm going to attach a link down below so you can check it out. Before we're getting started with the review, let's dive into this game to understand what Black Orchestra is all about. Black Orchestra is a 1 to 4 player game that is very thematic, where we're going to play conspirators in the Nazi regime, and the only goal that we have, that is the only winning condition, is to assassinate Hitler. On the other hand, we're going to have 3 losing conditions, but we're going to talk about them as we're seeing the game. In each player's turn, we're going to have a certain procedure over here, starting with checking if that player is actually in the same location as Hitler or one of his deputies. Those are actual people, of course, that served in the Nazi regime, people like Goebbels, Himmler, Hess, and so on. If yes, that is going to have some sort of a negative effect on that player. Depends, of course, on which character is situated on the same location. Can be losing an item, losing a card that we might have in our dossier. That might be to lower the motivation that we have right here on this track, or to actually increase the suspicion that the Nazi regime has towards our conspirator. After we finished that, we're going to move on to the action phase, and here we'll be able to do up to 3 actions from the list that we have over here. Some actions are going to be super simple, just like moving from one location to another. And here we have an interesting thing regarding which deck we're going to take cards from. Don't worry, I'm going to get to it later, because not all the locations are going to be available for us from the beginning. At the beginning of the game, there is no problem to go to any location that we would like in Berlin, or actually in one of the locations that is number 1, because that deck still has cards over here. Later, when we're going to move to a higher numbered decks, we'll be able to go to more locations. So again, the beginning of the game, location number 3, for example, or even 2, are not going to be available for us. On the other hand, at the end of the game, when we're going to reach the 7th deck, some locations are not going to be available for us anymore, and thematically it basically says that we're so far into the war that Nazi Germany already lost some of its grip in those locations, and we will not be able to move over there. Other actions can be just to flip one of the tokens that we have here. Those are items. It's called to reveal an item. And then also we'll be able to pick it up and place it on our player board. We'll be able to have up to 3 items, or 4 if we're playing the solo or the 2-player version of the game. After we have taken an item, basically we have revealed something in each location that we're going to take an item from, and that is going to reveal a certain condition that is going to help us to lower mainly the suspicion either from our conspirator, or we'll be able to distribute it between the different conspirators. So every time that we're going to take an item from different locations, we're just going to have more conditions and different things that we'll be able to do. Sometimes we'll need to deposit here, doesn't matter which item, and sometimes they're looking for a specific item that we'll need to put in this place. That means to discard it as an action. Thematically, it actually means that even though we're conspiring against Hitler, we still need to do our day-to-day job, just not to draw too much attention into us. Some locations are going to have an immediate effect on us, of course. For example, if someone is going to go to Treblinka, they're going to take +2 to their motivation, which is a positive thing, of course, but also they're going to raise their suspicion against them by 1. Another thing that we have is to conspire, which is the mechanism of the game to sometimes push our luck a little bit. For each action that we're going to sacrifice, we're going to roll 1 of the dice, and we're going to roll the dice. We have 3 possible outcomes over here. If we're going to have an eagle, that means that we're going to raise our suspicion and also to all the conspirators in that same location as ours. If we have this target, we're going to place it right over here on the descent track. And any number that we're going to receive on the dice is how many actions on top of everything that we've done so far we'll be able to do. So just for the example, if this is the outcome, we'll be able to take 8 actions. And I remind you that we started only with 3. So that is pretty cool, but it can have a negative effect. Once we have over here 3 target symbols, we're going to take something of a positive effect. This is not a how to play, so I don't want to burden you with too much information. Another action, a very important one that we'll be able to do, is to take a card from the conspirator deck. We have 3 types of cards. A regular one that will allow us to take some sort of an action. Also, we're going to have an illegal card. That is the red cards that are most of the time more powerful, but they're going to have a certain risk. And the last type of card that we have is actually a plot card. So this is one of the things that we need to have in order to try and assassinate Hitler. We're going to have here some sort of what action we're going to take against Hitler, the basic conditions. Here, for example, we'll have to be in the same location as Hitler, and Hitler has to be in location 3, 4, or 5. So any location that has the number 3 or any location that has the number 4 or 5, and that is going to allow us to have at least 1 die in our pool. On top of that, we're going to have a few things that are going to upgrade it. That means just to add more dice to the pool, sorry about that, and also to have another effect that is going to help us. We're going to get to the attempt on Hitler's life in just a few more moments. At the beginning of the game, when we're starting just in timid motivation, we'll be able to have up to 2 cards in our dossier, but the more we're going to advance with our motivation over here, not only will be able to increase the card limit in our hands, also will unlock a specific action or effect that different conspirators are going to have. So that is pretty cool, because when we're playing with a group of people, then really everyone is bringing a different thing to the table. And then just to have an attempt on Hitler's life, we'll need to be at least committed. And some of the plot cards are so crazy that we'll actually need to be reckless in order to have them. At the end of our turn, after we have executed our actions, we're going to draw 1 card from the event deck. So we're going to start with number 1. We're going to draw a card, and then we're going to resolve whatever it says over here. We have in each deck a key event, which is something a little bit bigger. And basically, this is our timer, let's say, of the game. So we cannot just take it forever, because at one point, decks are going to run out and we're going to continue to the other one. And this is, by the way, how we're going to unlock more locations that we'll be able to go to. And at some point, when we're reaching the 7th deck and we need to draw a card and we don't have it anymore, this is one of the losing conditions. The other losing condition is if all the players are going to find themselves into prison. And another losing effect is if we're going to draw from the 7th deck a card that is called Documents Located. That is basically like the Nazi regime is onto us and we have completely lost the game. And this is a card, by the way, that is an option for you if you want to place it in the game or not. Let's call it a difficulty module. If you want to have the game more difficult or more surprising, you can put it in the 7th deck. And if no, you can just get rid of it at the beginning of the game. On top of that, starting from the 2nd deck, we're going to have something that is called a Gestapo raid cards. So that is something, again, that we don't really know where to expect it. In the 2nd deck, we have only 1, but the more we're going to advance, we're going to have more Gestapo raid cards, which actually makes sense thematically because the Nazi regime starts to be even more and more paranoid. And the Gestapo raid card is basically, that is something that is going to hurt, of course, the different conspirators. If you're at the extreme level of suspicion, you're going to be arrested immediately. And not only that, if you're going to have one of these illegal cards, one of these red cards, then you'll have to get rid of it or raise the suspicion by 1, and so on. So at a certain moment of the game, when you have chosen which plot card you would like to use, you need to fill the conditions, and then you're going to attempt your plot against Hitler, and hopefully we're going to be successful and resolve this card. If no, we're going to have different things that are going to happen. Again, this is not a how to play, so I don't want to burden you so much, but feel free to check out my how to play into a board game code channel. I hope it's already in the air, but if no, it's going to be soon enough. So I think this was pretty much a good overview of the game. I think that I've covered most of the game over here in this overview. And let's start talking about the first parameter that I always talk about, that is the setup and the difficulty of learning the game. So I think this is one of my favorite features that I have over here in Black Orchestra, because the setup is extremely easy, not only when you don't know the game, but especially after you played it even one time, then everything comes to you so naturally. I think that setting up this game takes no longer than 5 minutes, and I exaggerated because you need to really shuffle the cards for a long time. Super easy to table this game and to set it up, which is something that I absolutely love. Learning the game is also not difficult at all. I think that the rule book that we have with Black Orchestra is really well designed. Not only that it doesn't leave you a lot of place to ask questions, because there are not a lot of extreme cases over here that you're just not sure what to do. Also, and this is something that I really appreciate in this design, let me take you back again to the table and show you that most, like 90 or 95% of the things that you will need in this game are already written on the board. Everything is so clear. When you have a question, most likely that the answer is already written somewhere on the board. For me, I think that this is a great feature that you have in this game. Of course, it's not possible to do it in every game, but this is relatively still a simple game that I just appreciate the designers are placing it over here, so you just don't need to go back to the rulebook every time that you're not sure what you need to do or what are the possible actions. And I definitely prefer this over like small player aids that you're going to have with you. No need to. Everything is written on the board. Take a look. Something that I really like. It's a really beautiful feature. Let's move on now to the gameplay itself, okay? The meat and bones of this review, how does it feel? So usually I talk about theme after I talk about the gameplay, but I can't, it's something that I have to talk about right now because this game is super thematic. Everything that you're doing here, you're talking in terms of the game. Picking up an item, the attempt on Hitler's life, you're going to move Hitler or one of his deputies, the suspicion, the motivation level, the plot cards. It's absolutely incredible. Even when you're playing solo, and by the way, playing here solo is super simple. You're just going to play 2 conspirators, so it's not a true solo or whatever, but I think that it's easy enough just to control 2 conspirators and going turn by turn. It's really not a problem at all. So even if you're playing solo over here, you're still thinking in terms of the game. The events here are, and the characters, of course, are extremely accurate to the history. Even the art, you have real photos from what we've had, unfortunately, over there in the Second World War in this section in Europe. I admire it, to be honest with you, because I think that at some point, some games are starting to look a little bit similar to each other, but the theme is what keeps everything together and makes a game unique. Of course, the mechanisms needs to be good as well, but here I just absolutely, I cannot say that I love the theme, of course, because this is hardcore, but still it is very thematic and I appreciate it. And I even understand small things, like again, like I said in the overview, when you're visiting Treblinka, for example, of course, a death camp, a concentration camp, then it makes sense that the motivation raises by 2 because the conspirator, of course, is being exposed into the atrocities that we have over there. But also at the same time, the Nazi regime is like, hey, how come the general or the admiral went over there? Something doesn't make sense over here, That's a little bit suspicious. So the small things, that you kind of make, like you understand the logic behind them is absolutely beautiful. Even the locations that are considered to be off limits when you're reaching already the 7th deck, I absolutely love it. I think that the small details over here are something that is incredible. So beyond the theme, the gameplay itself feels very good, especially if it's one of the first times that you're playing. I think that you're really going to be sucked into it. I think that this is a great game to learn as solo and then just bring a group of friends and show them how easy it is to understand. Even though the theme is a little bit heavy, of course, I would not be afraid to say that this is almost feel like a party game because, again, we don't have here complications. And I think that the interaction that we're going to have here between the players is amazing. I don't think that there is a place over here for like an alpha gamer or something like that. I think that this is really a cooperation because just by yourself or just by giving orders to your table friends over there, you will not be able to progress a lot, okay? You are dependent on others because sometimes you're going to draw a card that another player needs. Another time, another player is going to have an item that another player will need. Sometimes you will need to go and free someone from prison, which is another very thematic thing that we have over here. So again, we don't really have here a place for an alpha gamer. So design-wise, it's kind of smart to do it. Nobody's going to take control over the board, even though this is a cooperative game. On top of that, the game plays kind of quickly. So even if you're going to play it at 4 players with 4 conspirators, still things are going to move pretty fast because just I remind you that after each turn, we're going to draw one of the event cards. So it doesn't really matter how many players you are, okay? Just because again, the time is going to be pretty much the same. I'm saying pretty much, of course, because when you're having more players, that means that another player, of course, needs to take their turn. But the game doesn't overstay its welcome. I'm guessing that the only thing that kind of pushes back some people, according to some reviews that I saw, is first of all, the attempt on Hitler's life. That is something, of course, that comes down to one die roll that you have. But the thing is, and this is something that I think you don't really get from the reviews, it's not like you're just rolling the dice one time. If you succeeded, great, and if not, that's it. It can be punishing, of course, if you're failing, but that depends on how do you fail. Did you roll too many eagle signs and right now someone is going to be arrested? Or you just didn't have enough target marks like we have over here, and that means that yes, the plot has failed, but you're going to continue playing this game. You're actually going to continue your turn. So there is a lot of planification over here. It's not a simple thing, just like I'm sure it wasn't simple enough to assassinate the head of the Third Reich. So, you know, it feels okay, like the difficulty feels okay. On top of that, I'm not so sure you have paid attention, but we have over here this token that you're going to place over here if you want to play it on easy. Then you're going to place it one level on top of it if you want to play on medium difficulty. And of course, also the high difficulty. It's just going to determine Hitler's military support at certain minimum. That means it cannot go down below that. And it has something to do with the attempting a plot on Hitler. So the lower you're going to have the Hitler's military support, the easier it's going to be for you guys to assassinate Hitler. So I think that until you're actually playing the game, just from reading the reviews, you're saying, oh my God, everything comes down to one roll of a die. That is absurd. I don't want to pass 1 hour, 1.5 hours around the table and then at the end just like fail in the roll of a dice and finish the game. No, it's not like that. Of course, if you're taking a risk, okay, the higher risk you're taking, yeah, most probably things will happen. But with good planning towards your plot, what you want to do, and with good cooperation on the table, you will be able to mitigate a lot what you're going to have with the dice. So yes, there might be a problem over there, but again, I feel that it was kind of thematic and there are ways to mitigate this dice roll. The second thing that I would like to talk about is the replayability that kind of comes to the gameplay itself. I want to tell you that if you're buying it as a solo game or even at a 2-player game with the same kind of partner all the time, I can definitely see how this game can run its course after playing a few times. I don't think that this is a game that you're bringing a lot to the table, even though it is super simple to bring it to the table. And that is definitely something that if you're with your significant other or just a friend coming by and you want almost I won't say a filler game because it's not that easy, but just a quick game to table. And I think that in 30, 40 minutes, 45 minutes for 2 players, you can definitely have a game. Of course, if you know what to do and you're really directed over here. But for sure, after a few games, it's going to start being a little bit the samey, just because the cards are not going to change. I'm talking about the event cards. Of course, you're not going to all the time go through the entire deck of the conspirators, okay, these dossier cards. But most of the time, I'm guessing that after a few games, it's going to start to feel a little bit the same. So I guess it's a good thing that they're working now on an expansion for this game. Great, I'm super curious to see how it is. But also what I want to say, that I actually think that at a higher player count, you are going to have more fun, just because I think that the interaction that you're having between the players, that is something that is a very positive interaction, and you're actually feeling that you are plotting against Hitler, okay? You're conspiring. It's like behind the scene. It's something that you have to do just to make things look as usual. And there is a timer mechanism over here, not only regarding the cards themselves, but also the items that we have. Every time that we're using an item, that's it. It's gone. If you took an item, it's not going to reappear on the map. So slowly you're going to run off on options. And again, it's going to circle back again to the theme of the game, to how thematic it is, which is something that I absolutely love. So gameplay wise, I think that not only it's going to be played quickly, also the interaction that you have between the players is awesome, very positive, and the theme is great. Let's talk about another element of the game, and that is the production value. So I'll be honest with you, Black Orchestra was on my shelf of shame for more than I would like to admit. I'm sure of it, and I think that I got it for 40 euros or something like that, pretty much. And I think today you can even find it for cheaper, which is to me a great price for this game. Yes, the production here is not something incredible. We don't have here extraordinary materials or something like that, but to be honest with you, I think that it really fits the game over here. I wouldn't want to have here miniatures or even like beautiful meeples or something like that. These pawns over here that we're having as a player, or the generic cubes, for me it is totally fine. I really don't need here a dual layer player board. It's really not about that, okay? The game is here, the game is in the interaction, the game is in the cards of the plotting or whatever. This is where the game hides. So for me, the production over here is spot on. I wouldn't want to have something below that, but also I really don't need some more deluxeified stuff over here. This is great. What I would like to see in this game, and hopefully that is what they're going to do with the expansion, is a little bit even more of the same. Maybe adding one more mechanism over here, or just to spice things up, and to have more cards for the different event decks, because every time you're just going to take out 2 cards from each event deck, and that is something that is kinda supposed to help the replayability, but it doesn't really help replayability, okay? Those 2 cards are not enough to really make a change over here. So production value is totally okay. I think the prices that you can find the game today, and again, of course, it was secondhand. I'm not really sure how much you can buy this game new, but I'm guessing it's not going to be a lot, and I am guessing that it's going to be worth it. So, bottom line of this review, you guys, Black Orchestra, a highly thematic game that works very well either as a solo game or with a few players. The more you're going to play, in my opinion, the more players you're going to have, the more fun you're going to have, just because of the interaction is so positive and very thematic. The game itself is fun, even though the topic is a little bit heavy, of course, but I truly enjoy playing this game. What I can see a little bit of negativity over here is the replayability value, that to some extent is not so great. So I'm very curious what is going to happen in the expansion that they're working right now on GameFound. If I haven't said it before, then I'm going to attach a link down below. And the other negative thing that is, in my opinion, not that negative, but I just understand why other people might say it, is because the highlight of the game, okay, the peak of the game, of the after all the planning that you had and you want to assassinate Hitler, it all comes down to a roll of a dice, even though it can be mitigated in many ways. But if this is the peak of the game and you're failing, depends on how bad you're failing, but if you're failing, that might deflate you quite a bit. So I totally understand other people not liking it. For me, it's not something that bothers so much. Production-wise, this game I think is spot on. I wouldn't want to have something more. I wouldn't want to have something less. This is totally fine. A game that goes into a small box, which is great. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I hope that you liked the review. I hope that it piqued your interest a little bit. Not so sure if Alex already put on Board Game Co my how to play, or it's going to come pretty quickly. So stay tuned for that. I hope that you learned something new or saw something that you like. If that is the case, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me a lot, you guys. I sincerely say it, okay? It helps me a lot, and it's absolutely free. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.